Good morning, everyone. Paul Ripple here with Fox 29 News Now. Hope you're having a great Friday. We are obviously following the landfall of Hurricane Florence. That occurred this morning at near Wrightsville Beach. Let me get you the details on that. Hurricane Florence made landfall near Wrightsville Beach, North Carolina at 7:15 a.m. with estimated maximum winds of 90 miles per hour and a minimum central pressure estimate of 958 millibars. That's according to the National Weather Service. Let's show you radar of the storm as it's currently situated. You see the red there? I believe those are tornado warnings. There have been some warnings, watches issued and warnings more recently. There's obviously flood issues occurring in the area, flash flooding issues. Let's get you some of the latest information here. Important tips from the National Weather Service: stay indoors, do not venture out during the storm, do not drive or walk through stagnant or moving floodwaters, do not operate gas powered generators or charcoal grills in or near your home. Those are some important tips. But the National Weather Service is saying this storm will be a marathon versus a sprint. It's in addition to the ongoing dangerous storm surge and flash flooding, there will be a long-term river flood threat as well inland, as very heavy rainfall continues to fall in the coming days. So keep an eye, if you're down in that area, keep an eye on the National Weather Service, your local office, as well as National Weather Service and the Eastern region and the National Hurricane Center for details. Just moments ago, Fox's Lauren Blanchard filed a report from there. She was just in the midst of saying that Florence was starting to give them a little bit of a break, and then the wind kicked up a little bit. Here's her report.
Winds of 90 miles an hour, some of those gusts measuring at 105 miles an hour. We're getting a little relief from the rain right now, but we are told to expect this storm to get worse and to expect a lot more. Hurricane Florence making good on its threat, lashing the East Coast, and is expected to impact some 10 million Americans this week.
We're going to see not several inches of rain, we'll be seeing feet of rain. It's going to be overwhelming.
The storm's winds weakening slightly as it got closer to the coast. Florence pounding the Carolina shores with torrential rain and intense wind. Time-lapse video capturing the gusts shredding an American flag. Catastrophic flooding remains the biggest concern, not just along the coast, but far inland as well, especially with rain anticipated the entire weekend.
We know historically and statistically that most fatalities involved with hurricanes are a result of flooding.
Hoping to help combat the effects of the storm, Coast Guard flood response teams from across the country, equipped with inflatable boats and all-terrain vehicles, are ready to enter some of the hardest hit areas once it's safe. Utility companies also stand at the ready.
Anytime the trees get that kind of wind, 100 miles an hour, trees are going to come apart. They take out the power lines. We'll just, after the water recedes, we'll go in and do what work we can right away.
And the other concern there is going to be is this water quality. Because of all of these floodwaters that are expected to come into not only this area but all up and down the coast, there are going to be things like pollution, animal remains, waste, all in there. That's why they're telling people stay out of there. Also, power outages. Just in North Carolina alone, we're already in the hundreds of thousands of power outages. That number expected to grow. Live in Wilmington, North Carolina, Lauren Blanchard, Fox News.
That was a live report from Lauren Blanchard down in Fox News just moments ago. Here's a live look at radar zoomed in over the areas of Morehead City, New Bern, Greenville, North Carolina. You see Hatteras out there on the right. Looking to get some information about what the warnings are. As I mentioned, I believe they are tornado warnings at this time, some of them. Give you a live look at radar, or a live shot from Wilmington, North Carolina at the same time. We'll put those up for you. It appears that Griff Jenkins of Fox News is about to speak also. We'll take his report as soon as it's available. You can see him in the elements there, getting ready for his shot. Looks like he's right on a waterway. Storm is battering the coast with heavy rainfall and those strong winds. Saw earlier that some areas have picked up approximately 5 inches of rain already. Wind gusts into 90 miles per hour have been recorded on land.
To Atlantic Beach and saw just devastation, and here as well we're getting a lot of wind damage and we're getting surge from the ocean as high tide approaches. If you just look there at the ferocity of the waves of the water coming up. But here's the real thing. In the condo we are along a seawall, and this is a marina. This is the capital of the shrimp industry of North Carolina. And you go about a block in, and it's the main thoroughfare, Highway 70. It connects all the way to New Bern, where they're having the flooding up there. But as we drove down, we saw power lines, businesses destroyed. We saw trees snapped, block after block after block. And we saw gas stations that were entirely flat. And what that means is that once this finally stops, and it's not expected to stop for many more hours, you're going to have an unbelievably difficult time for first responders to get in here, for law enforcement to move around. I've been in contact all night long with the chief of police and the fire chief of Atlantic Beach, as well as the authorities here in Moorhead, as well as the authorities of New Bern, Kinston, and Jacksonville. And everybody is having unbelievable challenges because of the hurdles that they're facing from an extended water issue. The wind is fierce, and it is causing unbelievable damage along Highway 70 and in the surrounding areas. I'm looking at a street parallel to 70, separated by one block, and it is under about a foot of water, largely caused by the storm surge. But as you can see, the wind isn't stopping destroying things, Stuart. And actually, as we drove over to Atlantic Beach to go see that Oceana Pier, a family pier built in 1959, the end of it, of which should have been a bar, ripped apart. We went and took images of all the trees and businesses destroyed. But then when we came back, there were new businesses, new trees, new power lines down. So it is a situation, if you can imagine, is really continuing to deteriorate, and we don't even know necessarily how long more we have to go, but we're certain because of the size of Florence, it is certainly going to be several more hours. And for anybody that thought, oh, well, it's not a 4, it's just a 2 and coming on as a 1, now this is going to wreak real havoc and going to be a storm to be remembered in North Carolina's history when it's finally over. But that's not going to end for weeks with the water damage that's going to be caused by the flooding. You have here that Neuse River that's flooding right now in New Bern, 45 miles northwest of here. That river runs all the way into the Sound here, along with the Newport River and several others, and it's quite a catastrophic situation, and it's still very life-threatening, Stuart. Yeah, man. Yeah, you got it.
been watching. Griff Jenkins of Fox News reporting live from, I believe he's in Morehead City, North Carolina, which is inland a bit. Yesterday, I believe they were out on Atlantic Beach, which is, I'm sure, getting battered right now. You can see Morehead City right on the radar there, taking a lot of rain, heavy bands of yellow and orange and red on radar at this moment. It's right in one of the outer bands. Let's give you looks at both shots again. As he mentioned, the river was flooding in the background behind him. You have the heavy rain, the wind. He was talking about the damage that he encountered when they were able to get away from that location and take a look around. So we hope he stays safe and everybody else in Florence's path at this time. As I mentioned earlier, the storm is currently has max sustained winds of 90 miles per hour. So it's still a Category 1 hurricane. It's moving west at 6 miles per hour, so it's slowing up a little bit. Now moving west, they expect it to move a little bit to the south and west, still as a hurricane, but then drop to a tropical storm on Saturday, become a depression on Monday, and we could feel its effects, looks like perhaps more into Tuesday, but I've been hearing Monday night into Tuesday, and then by Wednesday the depression is up over New England. That's the current forecast from the computer models. Here's another look at Wilmington, North Carolina. See palm trees there taking a bit of wind. I did mention there were some tornado warnings in the area. Wow, this report from the National Weather Service, Newport, Morehead. Florence has dropped 13.8 inches of rain at the National Weather Service Morehead City Forecast Office as of 10 a.m., with heavy rain still falling. That's remarkable. They were passing along Goes East, captured dramatic views of the Hurricane Florence shortly after the storm made landfall. Here you go again. That is a shot from Morehead City with the radar in the background. You can see those bands continuing to pound the area. That shot up full for you, and here's the information that just came in from the National Weather Service office in Newport, Morehead City. 13.8 inches of rain as of 10 a.m. and the heavy rain is still falling. Fortunately for our area, the effects have been not as drastic. Obviously, we have had some higher surf, a little bit of higher waves, a little bit of a storm surge, not nearly as much as what they're encountering down in North Carolina. But our Fox 29 Steve Keeley filed a report about the storm, and let's show that to you now.
Yes, the hurricane, 360 miles south of the Jersey Shore, is still pushing and shoving the ocean into an angry Atlantic that may not be flooding New Jersey neighborhoods, but it's still bringing potential dangers to the end of the summer shore crowd this weekend. The warning signs here are on actual signs on Cape May's beach now. No lifeguard on duty after Labor Day, and even small waves now can smash your head and break your neck if swimming in this very rough surf. And also, there's the rip current danger. There are still lifeguards on duty up here in Atlantic City past Labor Day, but duty now is keeping everyone out of the ocean and even off the beach. Yes, the hurricane 360 miles south of the Jersey Shore is still pushing and shoving the ocean into an angry Atlantic that may not be flooding New Jersey neighborhoods, but it's still bringing potential dangers to the end of the summer shore crowd this weekend. The warning signs here are on actual signs on Cape May's beach now. No lifeguard on duty after Labor Day, and even small waves now can smash your head and break your neck if swimming in this very rough surf. And also, there's the rip current danger. There are still lifeguards on duty up here in Atlantic City past Labor Day, but duty now is keeping everyone out of the ocean and even off the beach, where there are dangerous 8 to 10 foot drops in the dunes caused by the high tide waves in recent days. So gates are now across many of the boardwalk entrances to the beach, and lifeguard stands are being used to block the sandy paths to the beach. Despite the expected sunny weather Saturday and Sunday, what may look like great beach days will be dangerous days for those whose last swim of summer could turn into their last swim ever. But still, with a second NFL legal sports betting weekend in the casinos and September sunshine, it's going to be a busy time at the shore for businesses like Madison's Bakery in Cape May, where actor Harvey Keitel has been a recent return customer.
They're saying the weather's going to be, pretty nice to come down for this weekend.
They said they would go down and they wanted to see what the water is like, and we just said you should be careful, so. And there were a lot of surfers out there, too.
So enjoy the last summer weekend here at the shore. Just keep any swimming plans in the nice hotel pools only. In Atlantic City, Steve Keeley, Fox 29 News. Back to you.
That was our Steve Keeley reporting from Atlantic City about the impacts of Hurricane Florence on us locally. Again, not as drastic an impact. Let's get you a look at live conditions. Currently in Philadelphia, it's about 70 degrees. Winds out of the east-northeast at 9 miles per hour. Let's get you a live look actually at the city. Here is the Benjamin Franklin Parkway. And there you go, 70 degrees, the dew point 68, so it's still humid out there. I believe it. When I checked it from home this morning, the relative humidity is still about 97%. It's been misting. We haven't seen the sun in a while around here, at least not for a substantial period of time. Winds out of the northeast at 9 miles per hour, as I mentioned, so a bit breezy, but still humid and sticky out there, although the temperatures aren't too high thanks to the cloud cover and the light falling rain we've had. We'll get you a look outside our studios. There you go. There's a live look at Market Street East outside our studios at 4th and Market here in Philadelphia, Old City. Under cloud cover. It doesn't appear to be raining right now. It's been off and on, misting in certain areas. Not much of it showing up on radar. Oh, that's an old view. Let's get you a current still of the radar situation. Let's take a look at our watches and warnings. This time we do not have coastal flood warnings for our area. There are some down on Delmarva, and you can see them at the very bottom of the screen there. We just have some, it appears some small craft advisories for hazardous seas. Might be some rip current statements in there. The hazardous weather outlook that the National Weather Service puts out says spotty minor coastal flooding is possible during this morning's high tide. Minor coastal flooding will likely be more widespread during this evening's high tide. Saturday through Thursday, same thing, minor coastal flooding possible during the times of high tide. So keep an eye out for that if you're along the coast. And we'll obviously be keeping an eye out on the forecast for rain as the remnants of this hurricane come through. Let's get you a look at the 7-day forecast. Clouds and drizzle, 76 today. The Phillies are back home for a 6-day homestand. Clouds to sun, Saturday, 80 degrees. Sunday, sunny and mild, 82. Monday, a shower chance, 80 degrees. Tuesday is when we could see that flow factor, 79. Sunny and nice Wednesday. And sunny and 82 on Wednesday. And then sunny and nice, 76 on Thursday. Earlier, FEMA held a news conference to talk about their response to this hurricane. Let's show you a little bit from the beginning of that news conference.
The west. Currently there is a tornado watch in effect and will likely continue into tonight. Storm surge along the Carolina coast will continue into Saturday and in some areas Sunday night and into Monday morning. Expect higher levels of higher tides during high tide cycles, and the next high tide cycle along the Carolina coast is around noon today, Eastern Time. I do want to emphasize that this is only the beginning. Florence is a very slow mover. We'll continue to trek along the North Carolina and South Carolina coastline for the next 24 to 36 hours. It will not get to Columbia, South Carolina until Sunday midnight morning. We've already seen a foot of rain just north of Wilmington area. We're still expecting rainfall amounts of 20 to 30 inches, some isolated spots of 40 inches. Some of you may remember this is in comparison to September of 1999. The first half of that month of that year, we had Hurricane Dennis and Floyd that produced around the same amount of rainfall that we are anticipating with Florence. The only difference is back then it was within 14 days, and we're looking at the same amount of rainfall in 3 days. Some of the river levels are going to be forecast to exceed the historic levels, and some of those were during Hurricane Floyd. We must emphasize for your own safety, to not drive where water covers the roadways, especially at night. A lot of the flooding is going to start in the river stem levels later on tonight near the coastline and increase Sunday into Monday further inland. Always remember, turn around, don't drown. That's the main thing that we always say. Concern beyond that continues with the track as it moves into the Appalachians Sunday into Monday, and also into the Mid-Atlantic region early next week. Due to the recent rainfall we've had over the last couple of weeks, it will not take that much rainfall for additional flash flooding to occur in these areas. 1 to 3 inches in a couple hours will lead to flash flooding. Not as much as the main step rivers as we anticipate over the Carolinas.
You're watching a news conference from earlier from FEMA. On the right, you're seeing live pictures from Morehead City, North Carolina. I don't know if you might have caught it, but there was a bird trying to fly into the wind there It looks like there's one in the foreground here too. It's amazing footage. This is a river flooding near Morehead City, and you're watching the news conference from FEMA a little bit earlier this morning.
On standby to support FEMA overflights for affected areas. NOAA's Office of Response and Recovery is also on standby to assist the Coast Guard in any possible chemical or oil spills. The SARSAT system is actively providing distress and specific location information to the Coast Guard. NOAA is working with local emergency managers and industry to help amplify our forecast message, including working through over 8,000 Weather Ready Nation ambassadors. Although the storm has made landfall, our work is not done. I want to say thank you to our hardworking team, from the response and recovery personnel across NOAA to our reconnaissance crews in the Office of Marine and Aviation Operations. And additionally to the National Weather Service and National Hurricane Center employees who've been working 24/7 shifts. Many of these individuals have been sheltered in place for many days. Thank you.
Good morning. Again, my name is Jeff Byard. I'm the Associate Administrator for Response and Recovery. I want to start this morning by, again, thanking the media and our partners. You've done a tremendous job in helping us amplify the message of how serious and the potential deadly this storm is and will continue to be. As our partners at NOAA and the Weather Center just briefed, this is not the end of it. 24 to 36 hours remain of a significant threat. From heavy rain, heavy surge, not just in North Carolina, but obviously down as we move into South Carolina. The message was very much amplified last night, again, through our media partners. Things like that I witnessed firsthand about, Category 3 to Category 2, Category 2 to Category 1. It was very clear that that's a wind indicator, not a surge and rain indicator, which has not dropped, as you can see. So, again, want to thank your part of being a part of our team as far as getting that message out and to evacuate. We stand ready to support our state and local first responders. There are many areas that are currently, in the heart of the storm, and there are many areas that will be as the day moves through today, tomorrow, and through the weekend. As you know, there are certain areas that where our first responders, it is not safe for them to respond, and we fully support that, by all means. So those citizens that did not heed the evacuation warnings, it's time to stay where you are, do the best you can to protect yourself and property and your family. We are in constant contact with both North Carolina, South Carolina, and also Virginia. There at the state level, we also have teams that are embedded at our state emergency operations centers and are in contact with our local emergency managers. Both states have activated their National Guard as well as their emergency operations plan. As you know, our National Guard does tremendous work across our nation, and they just do a wonderful job both at the national level and also their state duty of protecting the citizens of their representative states. We've also partnered with our good friends and partners that you see on the stage, but heavily engaged with the Department of Defense as we get ready to respond to this. We have what we need. We have what we need staged throughout the area, both as far as manpower and teams, as well as commodities, resources, communications. We've also heavily engaged with our partners at the private sector. Our focus, as you can see, priority is going to be life-saving, but on the monitors, it's also the effort's going to be stabilizing the critical lifelines in a very expedited manner. I have to reiterate, we have to set those expectations. This is going to be a duration. Power will be off. Infrastructure will be damaged or destroyed. Homes will be damaged or destroyed. So we need your help in level setting those expectations to our citizens and to our state and local governments. Heed local warnings. I can't emphasize that enough. Heed your local and state warnings. Protect yourself, protect your families. Don't put our first responders' lives in jeopardy. Do what you need to do as part of the team as well. And that message is to our citizens, both impacted currently and that will be impacted by the effects of Hurricane Florence. At this time, I want to turn it over to a good partner and a dear friend, Dr. Bob Catlick with the Health and Human Services.
Thanks a lot,
Dr.
Jeff.
Catlick, thank you.
Good morning. I'm Dr. Bob Cadlick with the Health and Human Services. I'm the Assistant Secretary for Preparedness and Response. To Jeff's point, we've been working closely with FEMA and our state and local partners well before the storm. Secretary Azar spoke to the governors, and I've spoken to the state health officials to know what resources are in place to assist them to save lives in the event of the worst case scenario. We've also been working very closely to declare public health emergencies in South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia that will ease the ability for individuals as well as hospitals to take care of folks affected by this storm. We've deployed more than 500 personnel. These are Public Health Commission Corps officers who are currently working in medical shelters around the region, assisting local communities, as well as several hundred disaster medical assistant teams who are positioned around the region to respond, if necessary, should there be a requirement to assist people who have specific health needs. We've worked extensively before the storm with state and local officials identifying individuals who are particularly vulnerable during events like this, people who are dependent on electrical equipment, such as ventilators, or people who have requirements for dialysis, to ensure that we know where they live and we can provide them services before the storm arrives as well as during the storm. Lastly, I just want to make a point that Secretary Azar has mobilized the entire Department of HHS, not only the Assistant Secretary for Preparedness and Response, but the Centers for Disease Control, CMS, and HRSA to be ready to assist our state and local partners to save lives and help those communities at risk. Thank you very much, and now I'll turn over to the Coast Guard.
Thank you, sir. Good morning. My name's Rear Admiral Meredith Austin with the Coast Guard. The safety of the people in the hurricane's path, as well as our own members and their families, remain our top priority, and we're continuing to work in close concert with FEMA, Army Corps, and our other federal, state, local, and private sector partners. We have Coast Guard personnel embedded with FEMA, DoD, and state emergency management agencies to enable a coordinated whole-of-government response. The Coast Guard has positioned 40 aircraft immediately outside the storm's path, which is about 20% of the Coast Guard's total aviation assets, to be ready to begin search and rescue operations as soon as it is safe to do so. In addition, we have shallow water response boat teams and deployable specialized forces to provide law enforcement, maritime security, as well as oil and hazardous materials response teams to come in immediately once the storm passes. We have over 7,100 Coast Guard members involved in the response so far and are ready to flow in more resources and assets when needed. The ports of Wilmington and Morehead City in North Carolina and the Port of Virginia remain closed at this time. The Coast Guard and Army Corps, NOAA, and other port partners are prepared to restore port operations with assets that have already been pre-staged as soon as it is possible once the storm passes and it is safe to do so. For those of you in the path of the storm, we continue to urge you to stay off the water, as our SAR assets, as I mentioned before, are still degraded or unavailable until the winds die down to a safe level. And one other thing is that social media is a poor distress calling system for a number of reasons. We can't stress strongly enough that people in distress need to call 911 to be able to do so. Some of the lessons we learned and incorporated during last year's hurricanes is the use of aggregate social media to find hotspots to know where to vector in resources. However, for one-on-one rescuing of personnel, it's not efficient enough, so please, we urge you to use 911 if possible. And finally, once the storm is past, hazards may still be present. Stay in a safe location while the Coast Guard and other state and local authorities assess damage and disperse additional resources. Thank you.
Hey, good morning. My name is Ray Alexander. I'm from the headquarters, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. I'm the Director of Contingency Operations. I'm here today to talk about the Corps' preparedness to respond under Emergency Support Function 3, Stafford Act, in support of FEMA and our state and local partners. But first, I'd like to mention the support that the Department of Defense is providing, as Mr. Byard highlighted. The Department of Defense and Army have deployed over 9,700 personnel. That's active and reserve component, and Department of the Army, Department of Defense civilians. In addition, key equipment has been positioned in the area. Vehicles capable of transiting high water, fixed-wing aircraft, rotary wing, both light and heavy helicopters have been positioned, in addition to amphibious vessels that are in the Army's inventory. To date, the Department of Defense has received over 25 mission assignments, $81 million. As far as the Corps is concerned, The Corps is in position and prepared to respond now. All our key leaders are located within the Carolinas. Today, our Deputy Commanding General for Civil Emergency Operations, Major General Spellman, is working his way to North Carolina, where he will link up with our Wilmington District Commander, Colonel Rob Clark, and they will engage at the State Emergency Operations Center and meet with key federal, state, local, other federal agency partners. In addition, Brigadier General Diana Holland from our South Atlantic Division, she will be forward as well in both South and North Carolina today. To date, the Corps has over 15 mission assignments, $5.3 million, and additionally over $1.3 million of our own flood control coastal emergency funds that allow us to prepare for and respond to flooding.
We'll get you back to that news conference right here.
In terms of missions that we expect to execute, temporary power is probably job number one we anticipate. And with that, we have our specialized power planning and response team.
Again, you're watching a replay of the FEMA news conference from earlier. This occurred in the 9 o'clock hour, ran until almost 10 o'clock, and you're seeing live images of radar and scenes from around North Carolina where Hurricane Florence has made landfall.
Infrastructure where needed. We are prepared to do infrastructure assessments of critical facilities in collaboration with EPA. Assessments on water or wastewater will be conducted. And then we're prepared to conduct other missions as assigned: debris, housing, temporary roofing, missions that we normally do in these types of events. Additionally, we have flood fight teams in position in the area and material to mitigate areas that we know that are going to flood, or be able to quickly respond areas where flooding is occurring. As far as dams are concerned, I think I briefed yesterday, the Corps has 5 dams in Virginia and North Carolina. All those dams have sufficient capacity to receive the amount of rainfall based upon the prediction and also the projected path of the storm. And then there are other federal dams, specifically dams on Fort Bragg, North Carolina, Fort Jackson, South Carolina. We have personnel there on both garrisons prepared to offer technical subject matter expertise and respond if necessary. We do not anticipate any of these dams failing of any kind or dangers downriver. And then there are state and local dams and private sector dams as well. We'll be monitoring the status of those dams, but those are actually controlled and managed, again, by state, local governments. And then navigation, as the Admiral said, we're working closely with NOAA and the U.S. Coast Guard. Our survey vessels, our dredges, they're in safe harbor now. But as soon as the storm passes and the sea state allows, we'll be working with our partners to ensure that the ports, Morehead City, Wilmington, are open as soon as possible, Atlantic Intercoastal Waterway, and key federal inlets as well. Lastly, I would say some things that we are planning for. Potentials are North Carolina 12, which runs the length of the Outer Banks. It's had a history of being breached at times. We're doing planning in the event there's a breach, and we're receiving assignment to repair that breach. We're looking for the potential debris mission, however, debris in the form of livestock, specifically hogs in eastern Carolina. There is a history of a large number of livestock being killed as a result of flooding in these storms. So we're prepared to do that. We are fully prepared for whatever may come. Again, our leaders are forward, and thank you.
I'm Charlie English with the American Red Cross, and I'd like to highlight a family reunification website that we operate in case you have been separated from your family, or if you're concerned about whether your family is okay or not. And you can get to that Safe and Well website at redcross.org, and under the Get Help tab, it will direct you to where you can post a message about being safe and well in a certain location. I'd also like to mention and ask for your consideration in giving blood. We've had to cancel over 130 blood drives in the impacted area, and you may be at home wanting to know what can you do to help. That's how you can help. So if you're in a non-impacted area, we would appreciate your consideration in giving blood. I'd also like to ask, we know we're going to need volunteers. It's going to take a lot of people to help with the post-impact sheltering and distribution of emergency supplies that we partner with government partners and other faith-based organizations to operate. But we don't want you just to respond to these scenes. There needs to be some training, so we would appreciate if you would register at redcross.org and any number of other fine private nonprofit organizations that you can volunteer with. We can get you trained up real quick and put you to work. And at this point, and I would say we continue, of course, to transition resources to the area of impact so that we are ready to do the post-impact sheltering and taking care of people. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to our friends with the Office of Disability Integration with FEMA.
Good morning. Today, FEMA's Office of Disability Integration and Coordination remains focused on life safety for people with disabilities who've been impacted by Florence. Together with the Red Cross and HHS, we're watching New Bern very closely because that county has the highest population of people with disabilities in the impacted areas. North Carolina has requested 2 EMAC FAST teams. FAST teams are basically teams that go in to assess shelters to ensure that they can meet the needs of people with disabilities who are going to be there. They're using what's called the CMIST protocol, where they assess communication, maintaining health, independence, services and support, and transportation to ensure that the shelters have the capacity to serve the folks that with disabilities that will be staying there. The Office of Disability Integration and Coordination has deployed disability integration advisors to support Region 4, as well as the states of North and South Carolina. These disability integration advisors are on the ground to advise senior leadership on, to ensure decisions being made will consider the needs of and the impact on survivors with disabilities who've been impacted by Florence. The Office of Disability Integration and Coordination is leaning forward. We are not waiting for response to be over before we start looking at recovery. We are bringing together representatives from FEMA's Individual Assistance Branch, from the Office of Disability Integration and Coordination, and our partners at the Red Cross to plan for the best way to transition people with disabilities out of the shelters and back into independent living in their communities. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Greg Forrester. I'm with the National Voluntary Organizations Active in Disaster. We're the largest association of disaster nonprofits in the nation. We're made up of 68 national member organizations, and then we have an organization in every state and territory. For the last 4 days, we've been working alongside of FEMA and State Emergency Management to make sure that our organizations are staged and ready to respond as soon as the storm clears. What we are is members of each and every community that's been disaster affected. 75% of our members are faith-based organizations with locations in each community across the nation. Right now, we're waiting for the storm to clear, but many of our organizations like Red Cross, Salvation Army, Southern Baptist Disaster Response are already engaged in housing and feeding missions for those that are sheltering. When the storm clears, our organizations will then stand up to go ahead and further that mission. We will also be engaged in cleanup work and other responses as needed. Right now, we're concentrating on volunteering and donations. We know that this nation is one that volunteers very readily. Sometimes those volunteers come in a form that we can't utilize them right away. So what we're asking for is go to our website, www.nvoad.org. We have a means by which you can go ahead and register to volunteer in each state that's been disaster affected. We also have a donations portal that's on there. We ask that for those donations, we're looking at just corporate in-kind donations to come through for things that we know are going to be needed. The best donation is cash. What we have found is as many disasters, things arrive into the disaster zone, we end up spending much more time working on donations than we do actually working with survivors. And so we ask that you don't do any clothing drives or any of those kinds of things at this point in time. We will let you know as far as what the needs are in the field. What we do know is commodities have been staged extremely well with FEMA and with our state emergency management partners. We are engaged and embedded within every state emergency management office and also here at FEMA at headquarters. Again, looking to volunteer, go to the website. As Mr. English stated, the Red Cross is an excellent organization to go ahead and volunteer with. You can go to our website and find all the other organizations on how you can affiliate with them so that you are prepared to respond in a coordinated way as we bring response and recovery to these disaster-affected communities. Thank you.
Hola, buenos días. Soy Daniel Yarguez, portavoz de FEMA. Queremos darle una actualización en español. La tormenta se movilizó en el norte de Carolina esta mañana a las 7 de la mañana.
I want to bring you back live. This is a graphic that's just been shared by the National Weather Service. It shows you the peak wind gusts that have been recorded as a result of Hurricane Florence. It might be a little tough to read on some screens, but the first two there are buoys that recorded wind gusts of 112 miles per hour near New River Inlet and Onslow Bay. And then Cape Lookout, North Carolina recorded a wind gust of 106 miles per hour. Wilmington, North Carolina, 105. Fort Macon, 105. Cape Fear, again, 100 miles per hour. Federal Point, 99 miles per hour. So some very much hurricane force wind gusts being recorded. These are the peak wind gusts as a result of this storm. Wrightsville Beach, where Landfall was made, recorded one of 87 miles per hour. So some of those might have come earlier in other locations. There continues to be let's show you some graphics of the storm. Futurecast has it eventually becoming a low pressure system. As of the latest advisory that just issued at 11 a.m. from the National Hurricane Center, Florence is a 80 mile per hour max sustained wind storm, still a Category 1 hurricane. Its position is, let's see, they just said it's just inland near Cape Fear, North Carolina. Pressure is 958 millibars. Movement is now down to west-southwest at only 3 miles per hour. So the storm is moving extremely slowly. It had been, I believe, 6 miles per hour in the 8 o'clock advisory. So down to 3 miles per hour. It's taking a stroll over the North Carolina coast right now after making landfall earlier this morning. As you can see, our Futurecast has it becoming a low pressure system, then impacting our weather likely into Tuesday. The eye appears to be gone now that it's on land, appears to have filled in, but you can see where the eye wall was and the heavy rain bands. Category 1, there you saw its speed, just 3 miles per hour. Look at that. Sunday, it's still in West Virginia. Gusty coastline and elevated tides for our area as that continues, as Steve Keeler reported from Atlantic City earlier this morning. There is a tornado warning that continues for the area till 11:15. That's for multiple cities, mainly on the northeast side of the storm, as it's currently sitting. That warning is for New Bern, James City, Fairfield Harbor. That's until 11:15 a.m. How about this? North Carolina Emergency Management recently tweeted out that their 10:30 a.m. power outage summary is almost 500,000 customers. The top counties affected are Bladen, Brunswick, Carteret, Columbus, Craven, Duplin, Johnston, New Hanover, Onslow, Pender, Sampson, Wake, and Wayne counties. But nearly 500,000, 497,255,000 customers without power. Excuse me, I misheard that. 497,255 customers without power. So it's going to be quite a bit of work to get the power turned back on for all of those customers when the storm moves. But you heard officials during that FEMA news conference from earlier warning them that this is going to be a long duration event and to hunker down. Here's Fox's Griff Jenkins getting back into the shot there in Morehead City, North Carolina. Let's hear if he's talking right now. I can't tell if he's giving a report or not. National Weather Service just tweeted earlier that to remind people to have multiple ways to get warnings. You can use local TV and radio, the internet, wireless emergency apps and weather apps, outdoor sirens from your family, friends, and coworkers, or NOAA Weather Radio. Here at Fox 29, we do have the Fox 29 Weather Authority app, which gives you location-based alerts as soon as they're available. So download that and get severe weather alerts as soon as they are available. I want to show you that it appears North Carolina's Emergency Operations Center will be holding a news conference soon. We'll take you to that as soon as it happens. You see cloudy and breezy, gusts of 30 miles per hour this weekend at the shore. You're feeling some of the effects there with high surf advisories, wave heights of 5 to 8 feet. You can see that storm is still battering the North Carolina coast near Wilmington. It's right off of inland from Cape Fear at the moment. Wind gusts at this moment over 50 miles per hour far inland. Again, we're waiting for a news conference to begin. The Emergency Operations Center in North Carolina. We'll have that for you as soon as it happens. Right now it looks like Lauren Blanchard is giving a live report, or preparing to. Get you out there as soon as she's ready to report. Here come the officials from North Carolina.
Good morning, everyone. Hurricane Florence is powerful, slow, and relentless. It's an uninvited brute who doesn't want to leave. The storm surge alone has overwhelmed the city of New Bern. Overnight, there are over 100 swiftwater rescues in this great city, and we expect more. other cities and counties across North Carolina are facing challenges and will continue to face challenges over the next few days and weeks. The eye of the storm made landfall on the North Carolina coast near Wrightsville Beach at 7:15 a.m. this morning, and we've seen wind gusts in Wilmington as high as 105 miles an hour, the highest recorded since 1958. The sun rose this morning on an extremely dangerous situation, and it's getting worse. The storm is going to continue its violent grind across our state for days and be a major inland event as well. To those in the storm's path, if you can hear me, please stay sheltered in place. Do not go out in this storm. The Weather Service says flash flooding will be extreme and flood waters will come up quickly and seemingly out of nowhere. We face multiple threats. Storm surge pounding our beaches, pushing seawater into rivers, and flooding homes and other structures. Rainwater and surge are forcing sounds and rivers over their banks. Roads across eastern North Carolina are underwater. Right now, our predictions show that the Lumber and Cape Fear rivers will crest significantly higher than they did with Hurricane Matthew. Other rivers will have significant flooding as well. And remember that rivers will keep on rising for days, even after the rain stops. Stay alert for evacuation notices around these rivers and leave if you are told to. Otherwise, stay indoors and off the roads. Don't put your life or the lives of emergency responders in danger. Here are updates since our last briefing. Right now, we have about 500,000 North Carolinians without power, concentrated in Carteret, Onslow, Craven, Pender, New Hanover, and Brunswick counties. That number is rising even as we speak. Utility crews from all over the country are standing by to restore power when it's safe for them to be out. We have approximately 20,000 or so people in 157 shelters. That number fluctuates. More shelters will be set up. High winds will pick up through central North Carolina today, putting trees, homes, and power lines at risk. We've seen storm surge as high as 10 feet on the Neuse River. And we're also seeing flooding along Bogue Sound at Beaufort, the Trent River, the Pungo River at Belhaven, the Pamlico River at Washington, and Pamlico Sound. Rivers are rising to dangerous levels. And the relentless rains will continue through the weekend. For some parts of southeastern North Carolina, one forecast shows a 1,000-year rain event. Rescue crews are working in risky, dangerous conditions that will only get worse today. Don't put them or yourself at risk. Stay indoors. Don't drive through water. Never use a generator indoors. Don't fly drones in a disaster area. If you do, rescue helicopters will have a difficult time operating. Be alert and listen to the radio for warnings about wind, tornadoes, rising water, or orders to shut off gas, water, and power. Here at the State Emergency Operations Center and at locations around the state, experts are staging supplies and equipment. They're standing up shelters for people in need. They're continuing to share critical flood mapping information so local officials can pinpoint where the next evacuations may be needed. Shelter information is available at the Ready NC app or on our website or by dialing 211. Individuals using video relay service for the deaf and hard of hearing should dial 888-892-1162, and we're grateful to have Monica McGee here using American Sign Language. If you have an emergency, call 911. We're tracking the storm around the clock, and we are in touch with local officials in areas bearing the brunt of the storm. I just talked to the mayor of New Bern, in fact. Teams will be ready to get them what they need to help their communities through this challenging time. We are expecting several more days of rain, and our focus now is getting people away from immediate danger. And then we will shift into putting our communities back together. The storm is wreaking havoc on our state, and we're deeply concerned for farms, for businesses, for schools, and even whole communities which could be wiped away. But I know North Carolinians, and we're going to make it through this because we're going to stick together and we're going to work together. We have had so many people calling in, texting us, asking us if there is a way that they can contribute. Our office has activated the North Carolina Disaster Relief Fund, which has been used in previous disasters. Visit rebuildnc.gov to contribute, or you can text Florence to 20222 if you would like to help. We have a strong team that's been working hard. This team includes local emergency operations centers and personnel there. It includes the state people, private, nonprofit, federal officials who are here with us in the emergency operations centers. We are grateful for all of the help. We have with me on my far right the Secretary of the Department of Public Safety, Eric Cooks. Next to him is Emergency Management Director Mike Sprayberry. Next to him is Dr. Mandy Cohen, the Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services. We also have directly behind me to my left, Jim Trogdon, the Secretary of the North Carolina Department of Transportation. We have Colonel Glenn McNeil, who is the Commander of the North Carolina Highway Patrol. We have Albie Lewis, who is the FEMA Coordinating Officer, and Gracia Check, who is the FEMA Region 4 Director. We also have Major General Greg Lusk of the North Carolina National Guard, and we have with us Peggy Britton of the United States Coast Guard. These are just those standing with me today, but we have more partners all over the state. We'll begin with having a report from Mike Sprayberry of Emergency Management. Mike?
Thank you, Governor. The State Emergency Operations Center continues to operate at a level 1. As the Governor said, the impacts to the state from Hurricane Florence are significant and will continue to be significant. Our operations and logistics teams are on standby to surge into impacted areas after the exit of tropical storm force winds. We also have a significant amount of aviation assets to accomplish various types of missions once it's good to fly again. We continue to focus on shelter operations, and we really thank our local partners for stepping up to assist in sheltering their fellow North Carolinians from Hurricane Florence. It means so much to so many. Once the storm passes, we'll work with our outstanding mass feeding partners to establish kitchens and other feeding operations throughout the impacted area. We're closely monitoring our rivers and have been sharing flood analysis tools with our county partners as well. Please make sure you follow the guidance of your local officials, and please be sure that you're staying tuned to your local media, as we do expect historical flooding throughout the state. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mike. Now our Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services, Dr. Mandy Cohen. Dr. Cohen.
Thank you, Governor. Good morning. Just an update. We continue to be in close contact with a number of healthcare facilities who are impacted by the storm. Of course, hospitals, nursing homes, dialysis centers. We are aware of those who are on generators, and we're closely monitoring those. We also have a number of medical shelters that are open. The High Point and Goldsboro shelters are nearly at capacity, but there is bed capacity in Clayton. Want you to make sure to call 211 or use the Ready NC app to make sure you know about shelter availability. And again, to heed the governor's message of not driving through standing water. It was the #1 cause of death in Hurricane Matthew. And do not use gas generators or grills inside your home because of carbon monoxide. Thank you, and be safe.
Thank you, Dr. Cohen. Now, General Jim Trogdon, the Secretary of the Department of Transportation. Jim?
Thank you, Governor. Our initial reports as of this morning is significant impacts to transportation reported in Pamlico and Craven counties. All the primary roads in Pamlico County were experiencing high water or flooding, to include NC 55, NC 304, NC 306, NC 307, NC 33, and US 17, NC 55, and US 70 business in and around New Bern. We also have initial reports of at least 18 secondary roads flooded in Pamlico, Pitt, Craven, Beaufort, and Carteret counties. We believe these are initial reports and are not totally conclusive to date because we have many locations that cannot get out and assess the damage because of the severity of the current conditions. We believe that travel right now is extremely hazardous south on I-95 south of Fayetteville, on US 74 from I-95 to Wilmington, and on I-40 from I-95 to Wilmington. The conditions are extremely hazardous now and will continue to worsen. We believe the impacts that we're seeing now are primarily and solely due to storm surge. So we know based on rainfall projections, the conditions will continue to get worse over the next 3 to 7 days. So a really good reminder to folks, if they get out there today in areas and the roads are clear, they may not be the next day. Flood conditions will worsen due to the rainfall. We anticipate from Wilmington to Charlotte, we'll experience between a 500-year and 1,000-year flood events from Wilmington to Charlotte all the way up through Fayetteville. So conditions will worsen over the next coming days. We're currently coordinating with our Federal Highway Administration for early release and quick release of federal funds to support our transportation response. And I just want to reinforce one more time, the impacts that you see following the movement of the storm out and the rain stop will not be all the impacts we'll experience. We'll continue to see additional impacts in the coming days to a week. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Trogdon. Now the Commander of the North Carolina Highway Patrol, Colonel Glenn McNeil.
Thank you, Governor. And can I begin by thanking the media for publicizing and making a priority our joint public safety messaging. This is a very dangerous storm, just like the Governor stated. Our citizens, their public safety is our highest priority. With the flooding conditions worsening across the eastern portion of North Carolina, roadway conditions continue to deteriorate. Highway Patrol personnel stand ready to respond to the impacted areas to assist local law enforcement. Overnight, troopers have responded to 108 calls for service and 30 collisions in the affected areas. As the heavy rain continues to fall, motorists are encouraged to avoid travel if at all possible. Motorists who are on the roadways should avoid traveling through barricaded roadways and do not drive through standing or running water. You have no way of verifying that the asphalt and the road itself remains underneath that water. Debris from downed power lines and trees posed a very serious threat. They can be hidden around every curve that you take, so please be careful if you must be out and drive. And the added event of reduced visibility from heavy rain from this storm creates an additional hazard. Residents who are yet to be affected by the storm, please continue to monitor your local news stations before you travel And please, to all involved, please avoid becoming complacent. This, again, is a very dangerous storm, and your life is very important to us. So please, abide by all the safety messaging that's being presented to you at this briefing. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel. Now we'll have Major General Greg Lusk, the commander of the North Carolina National Guard. General?
Thank you, sir. Historic and unprecedented. We've heard that said time and time again since the beginning of this, and I tell you just from my personal recollection, I think we've had a historic and unprecedented activation of North Carolina Guardsmen before landfall that I can recall, at least in my time serving with the North Carolina National Guard. We've talked about the 2,800 plus soldiers and airmen that are reinforcing this team all across the state. Over 500 of them already committed to missions working in direct support of the North Carolina Emergency Management's Eastern Branch, and they're already out there busy performing many of the rescue missions that some of you are hearing about and tracking in New Bern and other coastal communities. That's ongoing. The remaining of our guardsmen, over 2,000 of them, of course, are stationed in armories across the state. I've talked in the past about west of I-95. Their posture, they're going through the last minute, if you will, preparation of equipment and everything in anticipation of some of the missions that they may be called upon to do in the days to come. So all of that is ongoing right now, and that's where we are. As we start focusing a little bit more on what may happen, or what is likely to occur after the storm lifts, and we start dealing with all this historic and unprecedented flooding that we're talking about, it takes more than just us. And we have the entire Department of Defense that's backing us up, providing us some depth and some capabilities in order to take care of the citizens of North Carolina. Currently, they're pre-positioning a lot of aviation capabilities and assets all around the southeastern region of the United States right now. And we're in direct coordination with them. That leads us to, again, another historic event where today we're standing up our joint task force. First time we've ever done this in the middle of a disaster. And in that joint task force, we have a dual status commander that was signed and approved by the Secretary of Defense. That person will have a North Carolina National Guardsman in charge of federal Department of Defense military personnel that will be coming in the days to come, likely. So he'll be coordinating that, and he'll have command and control over them, working right here at our headquarters here in North Carolina. So a lot of history, a lot of unprecedented things are about to unfold in all of these capabilities. I think we're going to be very grateful for the fact that they're here, perhaps for the citizens of North Carolina. Thank you.
Thank you, General. An unprecedented storm requires an unprecedented team effort. I think that's what you're seeing. And I'm very grateful for the men and women of the Guard, of the patrol, of law enforcement, the first responders out there in the field, the people at the Emergency Operations Center here and the centers across the state, and all of their families who have been left at home. We thank you for your hard work and for your dedication to this. We'll be glad to take your questions.
Hi there. Thank you very much. Joe Rennison from the Financial Times. I just wondered if I could get a clarification. It's not been clear to me from reading reports this morning whether disaster declaration, the expedited disaster declaration that you requested yesterday, has been granted yet or not. You mentioned the Disaster Relief Fund, which I think is a state fund. So yes. I just wondered if you could...
The Disaster Relief Fund is what we're doing to solicit money from the public. But the declaration, we're still under review. We're still waiting for it, but we expect it to be approved. We expedited it in order to, because this is for the recovery and the help that we need after the storm. And so we went ahead and put it in place.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you've obviously expedited that. You obviously see it as being very important.
We do.
And I just wonder, it's been 24 hours now, or almost 24 hours, I wonder if there's any urgency you would like to see that more addressed with.
That's why we expedited it, and we have asked for it. We're getting all of the federal assistance that we have requested right now. This is for down the road. And for the recovery part of this, which we know will be substantial and we will look forward to helping the vets. Right, guys?
Yes, sir.
Right.
Governor Gary Robertson, AP, you were in state government or a legislator during Fran, during Floyd. Obviously, Attorney General is Matthew. I mean, how would you describe what you're hearing and what you're seeing in terms of comparing and contrasting those very damaging storms that really, seared in the memory of a lot of North Carolinians?
Those storms were tragic for a lot of people in our state. But I'll tell you, this one is so widespread. You're going to have a hard time finding a North Carolinian who is not going to be affected by this storm in some way. I still think we don't know the magnitude yet of this storm because it has just come ashore, and it's going to be here a long time, and it's going to cut a wide swath across our state and then head out west. We know the rains are coming there. I've been out and seen what rock slides and mudslides can do in western North Carolina. So for overall damage, it will be hard at the end of the day, I think, to find a rival for this storm. We still continue to hope for the best, but the predictions, the mapping, this is going to be a bad storm. So we've got a lot of work ahead of us. One good thing is we have yet to have a storm-related fatality, but we know that the potential is great because when people start going out after the storm is when you often see people die in floodwaters. And we just can't reiterate enough, don't go out and drive through these waters.
Governor Beershal Edmay with CBS 17 here in Raleigh. You spoke a little bit about some of the damage we've already seen in New Bern. Could you give some more specifics about the rescues and who is coordinating them as well? What kind of rescues we're actually seeing out there?
Yeah, we've seen several hundreds of those rescue operations out there by a number of different teams. And I think there are still some people they need to get to. But I'll let Mr. give us a specific update. He's been keeping up with this as it happens. Mike?
Thank you, Governor. So what's happened is we've allocated swiftwater rescue resources down to the different counties, and once they go down to the local county, they become under the operational control of that county. And so as they send them out as needed, they also have their own assets. So I think what you're seeing out there is a mix of federal, state, and local teams that are performing rescues. And you might understand that for us to get exact numbers about who's getting what rescued, we had a very difficult time getting who is the actual team that rescues the actual person. So we've got a variety of teams out there rescuing these people, and so that's how it happens.
Yes, sir.
You mentioned don't fly drones. Is that just a blanket precaution, or has that actually hindered some helicopter activity?
Well, we know that after the storm, there may be private companies, there may be just enthusiasts who want to view the damage, start flying drones. We believe that there will be an order from the FAA coming forward to tell people not to fly drones, because obviously we're going to have rescue helicopters and aircraft up in the air trying to find people, trying to figure out what the damage is. So I'm telling people now ahead of time, do not fly drones, because this can cause significant problems. I recall when the tornado went through Greensboro not too long ago, we were going to go and view some of the damage, and there were drones everywhere that people were flying. So we think this is going to be an important message, and why I decided to bring it up today, even before the storm passes, because we don't want people to fly these drones and put people's lives and property at risk.
And then separately, we talk a lot about power outages. Do you have any update, anybody up there, on cell phone networks, on how those are holding up, whether it be a problem with infrastructure or just call volume?
I don't think there is a huge issue with that right now.
Not at this time.
And in fact, some people are using cell phones to let rescuers know of their whereabouts. So right now, we don't see a whole lot of issue with that right now. It doesn't mean that we aren't going to have it, because there's still a lot of wind and rain to come. Other questions?
I think this one might be better for Colonel McNeil, talking about some of the issues you've had with Highway Patrol, the collisions. You said 108, and then I also think you had collisions and just responses. Are those because people are driving into floodwaters, or what's going on there?
No, ma'am. And generally speaking, people are listening to these safety messaging. Those are very low numbers given the number of registered vehicles that we have in North Carolina and drivers. So people are listening to our safety messages. And the impacted area being from I-95 east, to have those low of numbers, 30 collisions, we take that any day. It's great that people are listening to the messages.
Any other questions? All right, we're back at 5 o'clock. We're back at 5 o'clock. Thank you.
You've been listening to a news conference held by officials at the North Carolina Emergency Operations Center, where they're talking about the long duration event they're undergoing right now as a result of Hurricane Florence, which made landfall this morning. Here's a look at the storm right now. It's inlet of Cape Fear. See some of the wind gusts. The rain totals we've talked about already, over 13.5 inches of rain. Before we go, let's give you a quick look at Lauren Blanchard filed a new report while we were in that news conference. Let's take a look at that.
Expected to impact some 10 million Americans this week.
We're going to see not several inches of rain, we'll be seeing feet of rain. It's going to be overwhelming.
The storm's winds weakening slightly as it got closer to the coast. Florence pounding the Carolina shores with torrential rain and intense wind. Time-lapse video capturing the gusts shredding an American flag. Catastrophic flooding remains the biggest concern, not just along the coast, but far inland as well, especially with rain anticipated the entire weekend.
We know historically and statistically that most fatalities involved with hurricanes are a result of flooding.
Hoping to help combat the effects of the storm, Coast Guard flood response teams from across the country, equipped with inflatable boats and all-terrain vehicles, are ready to enter some of the hardest hit areas once it's safe. Utility companies also stand at the ready.
Anytime the trees get that kind of wind, 100 miles an hour, trees are going to come apart. They take out the power lines. We'll just, after the water recedes, we'll go in and do what work we can right away.
Another big concern with this storm is going to be water quality. There is expected to be a lot of flooding here in Wilmington. I can already see a number of the streets around here are starting to flood in there. Experts are warning there's going to be things like animal remains, waste, pollution. Those are all will be very hazardous, and that's why they're asking people, please do not go into those floodwaters. Live in Wilmington, North Carolina, Lauren Blanchard, Fox News.
Again, that was Fox's Lauren Blanchard, a report she filed just after 11 a.m. while that North Carolina news conference was ongoing. We're going to have the latest for you on Fox 29 News at 5, 6, 10, and 11. We are continuing to post stories to our website with new details. As we mentioned, Sue Sario just tweeted, Florence is still a hurricane, winds are down a bit, horrendous flooding continues. She was sharing the key messages from the National Hurricane Center, that the life-threatening storm surge is already occurring along portions of the North Carolina coast. Flooding and prolonged significant river flooding are likely over portions of the Carolinas and southern and central Appalachians through early next week. Damaging hurricane force winds are occurring, and large swells affecting Bermuda, portions of the U.S. East Coast, and the northwestern and central Bahamas will continue this week, resulting in life-threatening surf and rip currents. So remember, if you're at the shore this week, be safe. As Steve was saying, you might want to stay in the hotel pools. Stay dry. Looks like the impacts of the storm will be in our area around Tuesday. So let's get you one last look at your 7-day forecast before we go. Clouds to drizzle, 76 today. Clouds to sun, 80 on Saturday. 82 and sunny and mild on Sunday. Might actually get some of those outdoor activities that were canceled last weekend in this weekend. Monday, shower chance, 80 degrees. Flow, as we mentioned, the possible impact of hurricane flow, the remnants. For Tuesday, denoted as that flow factor there, 79. Wednesday, sunny and nice, 82. And Thursday, sunny and nice, 76. Thank you very much for watching Fox 29 News at, Fox 29 News Now. We'll be with you. I believe there may be a live report at noon today due to the, as we continue to follow, you see Lauren Blanchard, her photographer here, trying to keep their shot clean and ready, and producer. I believe we're going to have a live report at noon from Fox News about the ongoing hurricane and the flooding and everything else that's occurring with it. I want to thank you very much for watching Fox 29 News Now. Have a great day, and stay dry out there.